The moment you realize you need a reset, there comes a point in every person's life when the noise gets too loud. The stress, the pressure, the constant notifications, the emotional exhaustion. It's like you're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, while your heart and mind beg for a pause you can't find. And then right in the middle of that chaos, Ramadan arrives like a silent knock on the door, a reminder, a chance, a reset button. Most people think Ramadan is just about fasting from food and water. But the truth is deeper, far more powerful. Ramadan is the only month that forces the mind, body, and soul into alignment. It slows down your impulses, it sharpens your self-control, and it reveals the version of you that you are capable of becoming, but often ignore. In this moment, the beginning, you don't just enter Ramadan. Ramadan enters you. Imagine waking up before sunrise. The world's still dark and quiet. It's just you, your breath, and intention. That stillness becomes the first step toward transformation. For the first time in months, maybe years, you're not rushing. You're not scrolling. You're not chasing distractions. You're simply present, and that presence changes everything. The early hours of Ramadan reset your internal rhythm. Your body learns discipline. Your mind learns silence. Your heart learns clarity. You begin to realize how much of your life was on autopilot, how many choices you made without thinking, how many words you spoke without meaning, how many emotions you carried without understanding. This is where the transformation begins, not with an empty stomach, but with a conscious decision. This month, I'm taking myself back. The first day is always the hardest. Hunger whispers, thirst presses, old habits try to pull you back. But with every hour that passes, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your impulses, stronger than your excuses, stronger than the person you were yesterday. And somewhere between sunrise and sunset, something quietly shifts. You feel a strange calm, a focus, a sense of direction you maybe haven't felt in a long time. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's just real. Because deep inside, you know this truth. Transformation doesn't start when the world changes, it starts when you change. Day one becomes a mirror. It shows you how far you've drifted and how close you can come back. Ramadan has begun, and so has your reset, the discipline that rewires your mind. By the second day of Ramadan, something unusual begins to happen, not outside you, but inside. Your mind, which is normally restless, loud, and chaotic, starts slowing down. The endless cravings, the constant need to check your phone, the habit of reacting without thinking, all of it starts losing power. It's not magic, it's discipline. And Ramadan teaches it in a way no book, no seminar, no motivational video ever can. You wake up again before sunrise, but this time it feels slightly easier. Not because your body has fully adjusted, but because your intention is stronger than your comfort. That's the secret of transformation. Your mind changes the moment your priorities do. As the day goes on, you begin to notice your thoughts more clearly. Hunger makes you aware of how much you look for comfort. Thirst makes you aware of how often you take things for granted. And controlling your tongue, your temper, your impulses, that makes you aware of a deeper truth. Your mind has been running your life without your permission. Ramadan disrupts that autopilot. It forces you to take back the controls. By afternoon, the small victories start stacking up. You resisted snapping at someone. You turned away from a thought you shouldn't entertain. You chose silence over anger. You lowered your gaze. You protected your peace. These actions may look tiny, but inside, they are rewiring the structure of your mind, building new pathways of patience, resilience, and clarity. And somewhere in this process, you realize something powerful. Discipline isn't about restriction. It's about freedom. Because every time you say no to a distraction, you say yes to a stronger version of yourself. The world around you continues at its usual speed, people rushing, arguing, complaining, chasing, but you begin to feel like you're walking in a different rhythm. A calmer one, a smarter one, a conscious one. By the time sunset approaches, the struggle of the day transforms into pride. Not egoistic pride, but the quiet kind. The kind that whispers, "I did it. I controlled myself today." And that feeling is addictive. Not because of the fast itself, but because of what the fast reveals about you. You are capable of more than you thought. You are stronger than your impulses. You are rewriting your mind, 1 hour at a time. And Ramadan is just getting started. When the heart wakes up, by the 3rd day of Ramadan, the body starts adjusting. The mind slows its chaos, and something deeper begins to open. Your heart. Not the physical heart, but the spiritual one that has been buried under stress, noise, desires, regrets, and distractions. It doesn't happen suddenly. It happens quietly, like a door that was closed for years, finally cracking open. You begin to feel things more, not in a dramatic way, but in a clearer, purer, more honest way. You notice how a simple smile from someone lifts your mood. You notice the softness in your mother or father's voice. You notice how peaceful the world feels when you just sit still and breathe. And most importantly, you notice your relationship with Allah beginning to warm again. It's not because you're praying longer or reading more. It's because fasting has removed the layers that kept your heart numb. By now, the hunger isn't just physical, it's emotional and spiritual. You start craving meaning. You start craving purpose. You start craving the connection you've been missing for so long. As the day unfolds, you experience a feeling that's rare in the outside world: emotional clarity. You see your mistakes without hating yourself. You see your blessings without ignoring them. You see your life without filters, excuses, or denial. And for the first time in a long time, your heart whispers a truth you've been avoiding. You need to come back to your peace, back to your values, back to the person you were meant to be. You begin to feel guilt, not the kind that breaks you, but the kind that fixes you. The healthy guilt that says, you can do better, you can be better, you deserve better. And while your heart softens, something else happens too. Your ego weakens. The things that used to trigger you don't hit as hard. The people who annoyed you don't matter as much. The arguments you used to chase suddenly feel pointless. Because when the heart wakes up, the ego goes quiet. By sunset, when you finally take that first sip of water, you feel it not just in your throat, but deep in your soul. A gratitude that can't be explained, only experienced. Ramadan hasn't changed your life yet, but it has changed your heart. And that is where every transformation begins. Battle within, conquering your inner noise. By the 4th day of Ramadan, a new kind of struggle begins, not with hunger, not with thirst, not with tiredness, but with your inner noise, the thoughts, the temptations, the old habits, the emotional baggage, the whispers of negativity. All of it rises to the surface. And you finally see the real enemy wasn't the outside world. It was the storm inside you. This is the day you understand why Ramadan is called a purification. Because nothing gets purified without resistance. Nothing gets cleaned without friction. And no heart becomes stronger without facing its own shadows. You start noticing how your mind tries to trick you. Just get angry once. It's fine. Just say that hurtful word, it'll feel good. Just break one small rule, no one will know. But this time, you're aware. You can see the thoughts forming before they control you. You can feel the emotions rising before they explode. You can sense the impulse before it becomes a mistake. This awareness is the beginning of mastery. Every time you refuse to lash out, every time you swallow your pride, every time you choose silence over reaction, you take back a piece of yourself that you had lost long ago. And slowly, you start realizing something powerful. Fasting isn't about what you give up, it's about what you gain. You gain control over your tongue. You gain patience you didn't know you had. You gain the strength to walk away from negativity. You gain the ability to pause before you fall into the same old patterns. And that pause, that 1 second of awareness, is where transformation happens. By midday, you might feel emotional, sometimes weak, sometimes powerful, sometimes confused. That's normal. When the heart starts healing, it releases everything it held for years: anger, sadness, guilt, fear, regret. Ramadan makes you feel things you were too busy to feel before. This inner battle is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're finally confronting the things that once controlled you. By the time the sun goes down, you realize that today's victory wasn't about completing the fast. It was about defeating the voice that said you couldn't. The noise is still there, but now, for the first time, you're louder than your temptations. You're stronger than your weaknesses. You're becoming who you were meant to be, breaking the chains of habit. By the 5th day of Ramadan, something remarkable begins to unfold. Your habits, the ones that controlled your days without permission, start loosening their grip. You begin to notice how much of your life was shaped by routines you never chose. Eating out of boredom, scrolling out of habit, reacting out of impulse. Everything that used to run on autopilot suddenly feels exposed in the light of discipline. Ramadan has a way of showing you what owns you. And on day 5, you start taking that ownership back. You realize how often you reached for food not because you were hungry, but because you were stressed. How often you checked your phone not because you needed to, but because you were escaping silence. How often you spoke without thinking, acted without intention, and followed patterns that did nothing but drain you. But now, with every hour of fasting, the cycle breaks. The pattern dissolves. The habit loses power. Because fasting forces your brain to pause, and in that pause, you start seeing yourself with honesty. By now, the hunger is familiar. The thirst is manageable. But the awareness? That's new. You're not just refraining from food, you're refraining from the old version of yourself. You start choosing more consciously. When anger rises, you recognize it before it explodes. When negativity whispers, you catch it before it spreads. When temptation comes, you feel the strength to walk away. This is the freedom habits never gave you. And then something beautiful happens. You realize you're not just breaking habits, you're building new ones. Waking up early becomes a pattern of discipline. Controlling your tongue becomes a pattern of peace. Lowering your gaze becomes a pattern of respect. Choosing calm over chaos becomes a pattern of strength. By the afternoon, you feel a quiet pride growing inside you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're improving. And improvement consistent. Intentional improvement is the beginning of transformation. When you finally sit down at sunset, that first sip of water tastes like victory. It's not just the victory of completing another fast. It's the victory of proving to yourself that you are no longer controlled by the things that once owned you. On day 5, you haven't just broken habits, you've broken chains. And with those chains gone, your life is ready to rise higher. The silence that heals you. By the 6th day of Ramadan, a new kind of experience begins, one that most people don't talk about, but everyone feels. It's the silence, not the silence of an empty room, not the silence of isolation, but the silence that appears inside you. After days of controlling your tongue, your temper, your impulses, your desires, your inner world finally starts to quiet down. And in that quiet, healing begins. On normal days, your mind is filled with noise, overthinking, regrets, memories, insecurities, future worries, emotional clutter. But 6 days of intentional fasting creates a stillness where all that noise slows, then softens, then starts to fade. You begin to hear something you've ignored for years, your own soul. This silence isn't empty. It's comforting, soothing, pure. You start noticing how peaceful everything feels when you're not chasing distractions. How calm your heart becomes when you stop arguing with life. How clear your thoughts are when you stop feeding every impulse. For the first time in a long time, you're not rushing. You're not reacting. You're not running away from your emotions. You're just here, present, aware, alive. By now, your senses become sharper. The sound of Quran feels deeper. The act of prayer feels softer. The sight of the sunset feels heavier on the heart. Even the smell of food as iftar approaches hits differently because you appreciate it through patience. Instead of constant consumption, you begin to understand why silence is considered a form of worship. Because silence creates space. Space for reflection, space for gratitude, space for clarity, space for Allah to enter the heart in ways you never felt before. In this silence, you confront things you used to hide from. Your mistakes, your brokenness, your dreams, your truth. But instead of running, you face them with calm and courage because Ramadan has softened you, strengthened you, and prepared you. By evening, you feel a sense of peace that's rare in the modern world. A peace that comes not from comfort, but from control. Not from ease, but from intention. Not from the world, but from within. This silence is not an absence, it's a gift. A healing, a reset, a reminder that peace was never missing. You were just too loud inside to feel it. On day 6, you don't just fast, you heal. The strength you didn't know you had. By the 7th day of Ramadan, something powerful begins to settle inside you. Strength. Not the kind you show in the gym, not the kind you show in arguments, not the kind people applaud, but the kind that grows quietly, deep inside your soul. This is the day you realize you've come farther than you thought. What felt impossible a week ago has now become your rhythm. The hunger that scared you, you now manage with grace. The thirst that challenged you, you now handle with patience. The impulses that controlled you, you now recognize and resist. Most importantly, the version of you who lived in excuses and emotional weakness, you no longer relate to that person. Today, you see your strength not in what you lift, but in what you let go. Not in how loud you speak, but in how calmly you respond. Not in how much you gain, but in how much you sacrifice. Ramadan has a way of revealing your hidden potential. You start understanding that your limits were never real, they were mental walls, built by fear, habit, and comfort. And every single fast you complete breaks one more wall. By midday, this strength becomes visible in small acts. You choose patience over frustration. You choose kindness over ego. You choose intention over impulse. You choose faith over fear. Every choice becomes a reminder. You are capable of more than you ever gave yourself credit for. You also begin to notice another truth. Ramadan didn't change your life by giving you new strength. It changed your life by showing you the strength you always had. It was there, buried under comfort, laziness, and distraction, waiting to be awakened. By the 7th sunset, when you sit with that first sip of water, you feel a feeling that's hard to describe. A victory that's quiet but powerful. A confidence that's humble but real. A gratitude that fills the heart without a word spoken. You look at yourself and realize, if you can control your hunger, you can control your habits. If you can silence your ego, you can rebuild your character. If you can conquer your impulses, you can conquer your life. On day 7, you don't just feel stronger, you feel unstoppable. Because the old you would have quit by now, but the new you is just getting started. The emotional detox you didn't expect. By the 8th day of Ramadan, something unusual begins to happen. Your emotions start to rise to the surface. Not in a chaotic way, but in a cleansing way. It's like your heart, after being silent for days, begins to speak. And what it says surprises you. Maybe you feel more sensitive than usual. A small kindness touches you deeply. A painful memory resurfaces. A moment of gratitude brings tears. This isn't weakness. This is detox. Your body is fasting from food. Your soul is fasting from negativity. Your heart is fasting from emotional clutter. And as everything you buried begins to rise, you start to understand something important. Healing requires feeling. For years, maybe you distracted yourself from your emotions scrolling through feeds, jumping from one entertainment to another, avoiding silence, avoiding reflection. But Ramadan removes those distractions one by one. And now, on day 8, you're finally facing things you didn't have the courage or space to face before. The anger you suppressed, the guilt you carried quietly, the regrets you ran away from, the sadness you pretended didn't exist. They all come up not to break you, but to free you. This is when you realize that emotional pain doesn't destroy you. Holding it in does. Ramadan teaches you how to release, how to breathe, how to forgive, how to let go. And one of the greatest emotional releases happens when you realize you don't need to be perfect to be loved by Allah. You just need to be honest with Him and with yourself. By afternoon, you feel lighter, not because your fasting is easier, but because your heart is clearer. This clarity makes your worship deeper, your prayers more sincere, your gratitude more real. A simple dua feels like a conversation. A simple cider feels like surrender. A simple tear feels like purification. By the time the sun sets, you sense that you've shed something heavy. Not weight, but emotional burdens. Not stress, but spiritual dust. You feel like your heart is learning how to breathe again. Because Ramadan isn't just purifying your actions, it's purifying your emotions. The pain you finally faced becomes the peace you finally feel. On day 8, you don't just detox your body, you detox your heart, reconnecting with yourself again. By the 9th day of Ramadan, something profound begins to settle inside you: self-connection. Not the surface-level version where you say, "I'm fine," even when you're not, but the deeper, more honest connection where you finally see yourself clearly, without filters, without excuses, without noise. For months, maybe even years, you drifted from yourself without realizing it. Life got busy, responsibilities piled up, stress stepped in, and somewhere between surviving and managing, you stopped checking in with your own soul. But Ramadan slows everything down. It creates stillness, and in that stillness, you find yourself again. By day 9, you begin to understand your own patterns. You see what drains you. You see what heals you. You see who brings out the best in you and who brings out the worst. Most importantly, you see the person you've been ignoring, the real you. You start becoming honest about your emotions, honest about your weaknesses, honest about your strengths, honest about your mistakes, honest about what you want your life to become. This self-connection isn't easy. It's raw, it's vulnerable, but it's liberating. Because for the first time in a long time, you're not pretending, you're not performing, you're not hiding, you're showing up as you. Ramadan teaches you that self-awareness is not a luxury, it's a necessity. If you don't know yourself, you can't improve yourself. If you don't face yourself, you can't change yourself. By midday, you start recognizing the small victories that define your growth. You're calmer, you're more grounded. You think before you speak. You react less. You forgive faster. You appreciate more. These are not small changes, these are life-changing ones. The 9th sunset feels different. You're not just hungry. You're humbled. You're not just thirsty. You're grateful. And when that first sip of water touches your lips, it feels like the world pauses for a moment, reminding you of how far you've come in just 9 days. You don't feel like the same person you were last week. And that's the beauty of transformation. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. You're coming back to yourself. On day 9, you don't just reconnect with life. You reconnect with you, the turning point of the soul. By the 10th day of Ramadan, you begin to feel something shifting deep within you, something subtle, yet powerful. It's not just discipline anymore. It's not just patience, clarity, or emotional healing. This is something far greater, the awakening of your soul. The first 9 days were about breaking, softening, purifying, adjusting. But day 10, it becomes a turning point. You wake up before dawn with a different kind of intention, stronger, clearer, more heartfelt. You're not just waking up to eat. You're waking up to reset your heart before the world wakes up. That pre-sunrise peace feels like a secret doorway to Allah, a moment where the noise of life can't reach you. Throughout the day, you notice your inner world shifting gears. Your reactions slow down. Your thoughts become kinder. Your heart becomes softer. Your dua becomes deeper. You're not just controlling yourself anymore. You're transforming yourself. And this transformation doesn't come from grand actions. It comes from small, sincere moments. A quiet apology you never thought you'd give. A moment of forgiveness you didn't know you were capable of. A tear in sujud that wasn't forced, it just came. A smile you offered to someone who needed it more than you realized. These moments become the building blocks of a new version of you. By day 10, you begin to realize that the greatest battle of Ramadan isn't hunger, it's the fight to reclaim your soul from distraction, negativity, and spiritual laziness. And slowly, gently, beautifully, you start winning. You feel closer to Allah in ways you can't explain with words. Your heart feels lighter. Your mind feels clearer. Your soul feels awake. It's as if your entire inner world is turning toward the light again. After years of facing the darkness, by sunset, when you sit with that first date in your hand, you feel something holy in that moment, something ancient, something pure. It's gratitude not just for food, but for guidance, not just for the fast, but for the transformation it's creating inside you. You've reached 1/3 of Ramadan, and it has already changed you. On day 10, you don't just fast. You turn a corner. You begin to walk toward the version of yourself you always hoped to become. The renewal of purpose. By the 11th day of Ramadan, something deeper begins to settle into your heart, a renewed sense of purpose. Not the temporary motivation you get from a speech or a quote, but the kind of purpose that reorganizes your life from the inside out. You start waking up with intention, not routine. You start fasting with awareness, not just discipline. You start praying with presence, not just movement. It's as if your soul has finally lifted its head and whispered, "This is who you were meant to be." Throughout the day, clarity becomes your companion. You begin to question the way you've been living, your habits, your priorities, your relationships, your goals. You see what aligns with your soul and what doesn't. Ramadan has a way of clearing the fog. It strips away the unnecessary, the excessive, the distracting, and leaves you alone with the truth. And that truth is simple. You were made for more. By day 11, you start noticing what truly matters. Time feels precious. Words feel heavier. Energy feels sacred. You become more selective about what you give your heart to, because you finally realize your heart was never meant for everything. This renewal of purpose shows up in small decisions. You choose peace instead of proving a point. You choose patience instead of anger. You choose gratitude over complaining. You choose worship over wasting time. Each choice becomes a brick in the foundation of a better life. By afternoon, something beautiful begins to happen. You reconnect with the idea of who you want to be, not the version shaped by society, stress, or fear, but the version shaped by sincerity and faith. You start dreaming again. You start planning again. You start believing again. The sunset of day 11 feels different. There is a quiet determination rising inside you. The feeling that your life can change, your future can shift, and you can become someone you're proud of. This isn't just hope, it's conviction. Ramadan has awakened a fire inside you, a purpose that reminds you why you were created, why you're here, and where you're meant to go. On day 11, you don't just renew your purpose, you realign your life with it. When patience becomes your superpower, by the 12th day of Ramadan, something extraordinary begins to take shape. Patience becomes natural, not forced, not exhausting, not something you struggle to hold onto, but something that flows through you like a quiet strength. It didn't happen overnight. It happened through every moment you held back a reaction, softened your tone, controlled your hunger, resisted temptation, and chose calm over chaos. These small acts were not small at all, they were training. And today, you feel the result of that training in your bones. You start realizing that patience isn't just waiting, it's winning. It's the ability to remain steady when life tries to shake you. It's the discipline to respond instead of react. It's the wisdom to know what deserves your energy and what doesn't. On day 12, you see situations differently. The comments that used to irritate you don't get under your skin anymore. The delays that used to frustrate you feel manageable. The people who used to drain you no longer have power over your emotions. Why? Because Ramadan has strengthened you from the inside. Your heart becomes slower to anger, quicker to forgive. Your mind becomes slower to panic, quicker to reflect. Your soul becomes slower to complain, quicker to say Alhamdulillah. You realize patience is not weakness. It's emotional mastery. It's spiritual intelligence. It's inner freedom. And this patience changes everything. It changes how you speak. It changes how you think. It changes how you solve problems. It even changes how you see hardship. By afternoon, you start noticing how peaceful life feels when you stop giving your power away to every little annoyance. You walk through the day with a quiet confidence, knowing that nothing outside you can disturb. The calm inside you unless you allow it, and you're no longer allowing it. This is when you truly understand the gift of fasting. It teaches you patience in a world that demands speed. It teaches you discipline in a culture that worships convenience. It teaches you calmness in an age full of noise. When the sun sets on day 12, you feel proud not because the day was easy, but because you were steady. You held yourself together with grace. You chose dignity over frustration. You chose peace over reaction. On day 12, you don't just practice patience, you embody it. And once patience becomes your superpower, life begins to change in ways you never imagined. The moment you finally see yourself, there comes a point in Ramadan when the noise of the world finally fades, and the noise inside you rises to the surface. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or how busy your life is. Around the middle of Ramadan, something shifts. It's like a mirror you've been avoiding suddenly stands in front of you. And for the first time in months, maybe years, you actually see yourself. Not the version you post online, not the version you pretend to be, but you, raw, quiet, unfiltered. This part of the journey hits different because it's the first time you Realize how much you've been carrying. The stress, the guilt, the broken promises you made to yourself, the anger you've been hiding, the people who hurt you, the I'm fine masks you wore until they became heavy. Ramadan doesn't pressure you to face these things. It simply removes distractions until facing them becomes unavoidable. You begin asking questions you never had time for before. Why do I react like this? Why am I running away from healing? Why do I feel empty even when life looks full? And subtly, you start catching your faults not with shame, but with clarity. You notice how easily you get irritated, how quickly your ego jumps to defend itself, how little patience you had before fasting slowed you down. You begin to see the patterns you need to break and the habits you need to rebuild. This awareness isn't painful, it's powerful. It's the doorway to transformation. Because the first step to changing your life is recognizing the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. Ramadan creates that sacred pause where you finally tell yourself the truth. You realize the person you've been is not the person you have to remain. And in that realization, something unlocks inside you. A small but important shift. You feel ready to grow, ready to evolve, ready to rewrite the story you've been scared to start. By the time this part of Ramadan arrives, most people don't even realize they've already changed. Their tone is softer, their heart is lighter, their intentions are cleaner, their soul is quieter. This is the moment you understand. Ramadan isn't just changing your schedule, it's changing your self-awareness. It's reintroducing you to the person you were always meant to be. When your heart learns the value of silence, there's a point in Ramadan where silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling sacred. It's a different kind of quiet one that doesn't make you uncomfortable, one that doesn't feel like something is missing. Instead, it feels like something is healing. Something is settling. Something inside you is finally breathing again. Most of us spend our lives surrounded by noise, notifications, opinions, arguments, deadlines, expectations. Even our own thoughts become loud enough to exhaust us. But in Ramadan, that noise slowly loses its power. Your heart, for the first time in a long time, gets a chance to rest. This silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening just inside you. You start noticing the beauty of slowing down, the beauty of not reacting instantly, the beauty of thinking before speaking. You realize how many problems in your life came from acting too fast, talking too much, or taking things too personally. But now, your heart feels calmer, more stable, less reactive. Silence becomes a teacher. It teaches you patience. It teaches you restraint. It teaches you emotional intelligence in a way no lecture or book ever could. In this quiet, you begin hearing things you ignored before. Your conscience whispering what is right, your intuition guiding you toward clarity, your soul reminding you of what truly matters. For the first time, you see how much energy you used to waste on arguments that didn't matter, on anger that didn't help, on people who didn't value your peace. Ramadan helps you reclaim that energy by teaching you the discipline of silence. You also notice something else. Your prayers become deeper, your thoughts become cleaner, your intentions become sharper. Even the way you speak starts to change. Your tone becomes softer, Your words become kinder. Your speech becomes more meaningful. Because silence trained you to speak with purpose. And the best part? This silence doesn't disconnect you from the world. It reconnects you to yourself. This is the heart of transformation. When your soul becomes quiet enough to actually listen. When you stop being loud and start being aware. When you stop reacting and start reflecting. By the time you reach this stage, you realize something powerful. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs happen in silence. Not because the world stopped talking, but because your heart finally did. The rebuilding of your inner strength. There's a powerful stage in Ramadan when you finally realize that strength isn't about how much you can carry. It's about how much you can let go. As the month progresses, your heart starts releasing things you didn't even know were weighing you down. Old grudges, hidden disappointments, the ego you kept protecting, the pain you never addressed. Ramadan doesn't just ask you to fast from food. It pushes you to fast from every emotion that has been draining your soul. You begin noticing that your reactions are different. The things that used to irritate you don't hit the same. The people who used to trigger you suddenly lose their power. The situations that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. This is inner strength being rebuilt quietly, patiently, naturally. You realize strength isn't about fighting every battle. It's about choosing the battles that matter. It's about knowing when to speak and when to walk away. It's about protecting your peace like it's a blessing, not a weakness. Ramadan teaches you that real strength is emotional discipline. It's self-control. It's restraint. It's the ability to stay calm when everything around you tries to pull you back into your old patterns. And slowly, you feel yourself becoming someone you actually respect. You wake up earlier without complaining. You pray with focus instead of rushing. You listen more than you argue. You think before you respond. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. This growth isn't loud. No one may even notice it, but you notice it. You feel lighter. You feel clearer. You feel stronger not in your muscles, but in your mind, heart, and spirit. You also begin to realize something profound. Not everything deserves your energy. Not everyone gets access to your heart. Not every comment is worth reacting to. Not every emotion needs a response. Because the more you control yourself, the less the world can control you. Ramadan becomes the training ground where you learn emotional balance. The storms that used to shake you now pass through you with less damage. The doubts that used to scare you now fade with faith. The stress that used to crush you now feels like just another moment you can handle. By this stage of Ramadan, you understand a truth that can change your entire life. Strength isn't about being unbreakable. It's about learning how to rebuild every single time. When gratitude rewires your entire life, there comes a moment in Ramadan when gratitude stops being a word and becomes a feeling that shakes you to your core. It's not forced gratitude, not the kind you say out of politeness. This is deeper, raw, humbling, and transformational. It's the gratitude that makes you pause, breathe, and truly see the blessings you used to walk past without noticing. You realize how powerful a single glass of water is, how comforting one warm meal feels, how valuable good health truly is, how healing a sincere prayer can be. You start noticing tiny things that were always around you, but never appreciated. The softness in someone's voice, the patience in someone's tone, the quiet support you receive without asking, even the ability to wake up and move, breathe, think, and feel becomes a blessing that hits different during Ramadan. This gratitude doesn't come from comfort. It comes from discipline, fasting, and sacrifice. When you go without food, you learn the privilege of having it. When you control your anger, you learn the value of peace. When you pray deeply, you learn the beauty of spiritual connection. When you give charity, you learn the meaning of purpose. Gratitude begins rewiring your mind. Negative thoughts lose their strength. Complaints feel unnecessary. Material desires quiet down. You don't look at what is missing, you look at what is present. This is where the heart transforms, because a grateful heart becomes a strong heart. You also begin to see that happiness was never far away. It was always in the simple moments, sharing a meal with family, hearing children laugh at iftar, watching the sky brighten during suhoor, or feeling the peace after a sincere dua. These moments feel small on the outside, but they carry entire worlds inside them. The more gratitude enters your heart, the less room there is for jealousy, sadness, bitterness, and regret. Gratitude becomes protection, shielding you from negativity and reminding you that blessings exist even on difficult days. By this stage of Ramadan, you realize something powerful. You don't need a perfect life to feel blessed. You just need a grateful heart to feel fulfilled. And once gratitude becomes part of you, your entire world changes. Your mindset becomes lighter. Your relationships become kinder. Your soul becomes calmer, because gratitude doesn't just change how you look at life. It changes the way life feels. The return of your real purpose. There's a point in Ramadan when something deep inside you wakes up your purpose. Not the goals you set because society expects them. Not the dreams you chase because everyone else is chasing them. This is different. This is the inner compass you buried under stress, routine, and survival mode. And suddenly, Ramadan brings it back to the surface. You start asking yourself bigger questions. What am I really doing with my life? Why am I living like this? What kind of person am I becoming? These questions don't scare you anymore, they guide you. They make you realize how easily you lost yourself in the world's noise and forgot what you were created for. Meaning, goodness, growth, faith, compassion, truth. Your daily schedule begins to reflect that shift. You pray with intention, not obligation. You speak with kindness, not ego. You live with purpose, not autopilot. You wake up at suhoor and feel a drive you haven't felt in years. Like life is offering you another chance to become the person you always wanted to be. Your heart becomes more focused. Your mind becomes clearer. You understand that discipline isn't punishment, it's direction. The distractions that once controlled you, endless scrolling, unhealthy habits, chaotic routines start losing their appeal. You don't crave them the same way anymore, because your soul is being fed by something deeper, something real. You also begin to realize that your purpose isn't something you find, it's something you live. It's in the choices you make, the patience you show, the kindness you give, the prayers you whisper, the temptations you resist, the good you do when no one is watching. Ramadan shows you that purpose isn't a career or a title. It's character, it's faith, it's responsibility, it's service. It's becoming a better version of yourself every single day. You look at your life and understand that every moment you're alive is a chance to rise, to fix what's broken, to heal what's hurting, to become someone who leaves a mark of goodness wherever they go. By this stage of Ramadan, something powerful becomes clear. You were never lost. You were just disconnected from your purpose, and Ramadan brought you back to it. When purpose returns, life finally feels meaningful again. Your steps feel guided. Your days feel lighter. Your heart feels awake. Final stretch that reveals who you've become. As Ramadan reaches its final stretch, something extraordinary happens. The month that felt long in the beginning suddenly feels too short. You look at the calendar and feel a quiet ache in your chest because you're not just running out of days. You're running out of a version of yourself that you actually love being. This is the stage where you truly see the change. Not in the mirror, not in your routine, but in your soul. You notice how your heart handles things differently now. You don't break the way you used to. You don't react the way you used to. You don't rush the way you used to. There's a new calmness inside you, a strength you didn't even know you were building. Fasting doesn't feel like a burden anymore. Prayers feel deeper. Duas feel more emotional. Charity feels more meaningful. Silence feels more peaceful. You start protecting your time and your energy. You say no to things that drain you. You pull away from negativity. You stop giving your emotions to people who don't value them. You understand that peace is a blessing and you finally treat it like one. This is the part of Ramadan where even the smallest good deed feels heavier on the scale. You feel every moment counting. Every side feels like healing. Every evening feels like mercy. Every suhoor feels like discipline. You realize the finish line isn't just close, it's sacred. And here's the most beautiful part. You see your old self standing behind you, farther than ever. The impatient you, the stressed you, the distracted you, the unfocused you, the spiritually disconnected you. They're still there in your memories, but they're no longer controlling your reality. You've stepped into a different version of yourself, one that thinks with clarity, feels with sincerity, and lives with purpose. You also begin to understand a profound truth. Ramadan was never about becoming perfect. It was about becoming aware. Aware of your blessings, aware of your habits, aware of your intentions, aware of your potential, aware of the person you're capable of becoming. By this stage, the transformation is undeniable. The mercy of the month, the discipline of fasting, the softness of prayers, all of it has shaped you into someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded. This final stretch doesn't show you who you want to be. It shows you who you've already become. The night when your heart finally breaks open. There is a moment in the last days of Ramadan, especially in the final 10 nights, when your heart reaches a depth it hasn't touched all year. It's not sadness. It's not weakness. It's something far more powerful. Openness. A kind of emotional clarity where every layer of your soul becomes visible. Soft, honest, vulnerable, and ready for change. You stand in prayer and suddenly your voice trembles. You raise your hands in dua and tears come without warning. You whisper your struggles and for once, you don't feel alone. This is the night when your heart breaks open not from pain, but from mercy. Mercy that finally reaches the places inside you that no one else ever sees. You start admitting things to yourself. I've been tired. I've been hurting. I've been pretending I'm okay. I've been carrying too much. I need help. I need healing. I need guidance. And just like that, your heart softens. The walls you built out of fear start falling. The numbness you carried for years begins melting. The burden you hid begins lifting. This is the night when you truly feel the weight of every blessing, every mistake, every moment that shaped you. You realize that the deepest form of strength is the courage to surrender, to let go, to admit your need for forgiveness, direction, hope, and renewal. You start making real promises, not emotional promises, not temporary promises, but commitments that come from the deepest parts of your soul. I want to be better. I want to stay consistent. I want to protect my peace. I want to live with purpose. I want to stay close to God, even after Ramadan. And something shifts inside you, not in your mind, not in your body, but in your spirit. You feel lighter, clearer, and more connected. You feel like something inside you is being rebuilt with sincerity and intention. You understand that this brokenness isn't failure, it's transformation. Because nothing truly changes until the heart opens. By this point in Ramadan, you finally understand. The real power of the month isn't in the days, it's in the nights. Not in your hunger, but in your humility. Not in what you gave up, but in what you gained. This is the night when you stop running from yourself and start returning to yourself. The night when your heart becomes honest enough to heal, humble enough to grow, and open enough to receive the kind of change that lasts long after Ramadan ends. The person you take beyond Ramadan. When the final moments of Ramadan arrive, the world around you looks the same, but you don't. Your routine may return to normal, but your heart never will. This is the moment when you look back at the journey of 30 days and realize you've been quietly rewired, softened, strengthened, and transformed in ways you didn't even notice while it was happening. You wake up on the last morning with a strange mix of emotions. Gratitude for what you gained, sadness for what is ending, and hope for who you're becoming. You start realizing that the real test was never fasting. The real test begins after Ramadan. Because Ramadan didn't just teach you discipline, it showed you who you're capable of becoming when you live with intention. You've built habits that felt impossible before. You've controlled desires you once thought were unbreakable. You've learned patience in moments you normally would have lost control. You've developed clarity about your purpose, your values, and your life. Now the question becomes, what will you take forward? Will you keep waking up with gratitude? Will you protect your peace the way Ramadan taught you? Will you guard your tongue the way fasting trained you? Will you pray with the same depth you learned in the quiet nights? Will you keep your ego in check, your heart soft, your soul awake? These aren't small questions, these are the blueprint for the rest of your life. Because Ramadan wasn't just a month, it was a reset button. A detox for the soul, a mirror showing you your best self, a reminder that transformation is possible when you commit. You look at yourself now and realize you've changed in ways that matter. You forgive easier, you speak calmer, you think deeper, you care more, you complain less, you appreciate more, your heart feels cleaner. Your mind feels clearer. Your life feels more meaningful. And even if you slip later, even if you fall back into old habits, the awareness you gained in Ramadan never leaves you. It becomes a light inside you, guiding you back every time you drift. As the month closes, you understand the most important truth of all. Ramadan didn't change your life for 30 days. It showed you how to change your life for the next 30 years. This is the version of you that matters. This is the version you carry forward. This is the version the world needs. And this is the version you were always meant to become.